All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Jazziz Daily Brunch. I am your host, Brian Zimmerman, digital content editor for Jazziz Magazine. And boy, we have got ourselves a busy brunch today. It's going to be a multiple cup of coffee day for sure. So pour yourself another cup, folks, and buckle in. A lot of stuff in store. First of all, let me be the first to wish you a happy International Jazz Day. Yes, that's right. April 30th is International Jazz Day. It's a UNESCO recognized international day of celebration that historically celebrates jazz and its power to unite people around the world. You know, in the past, it's been celebrated with concerts and gigs around the world, with a main global concert taking place in a different city each year. Last year's was in Melbourne, Australia, and I was there, folks. It was awesome. And while, you know, the coronavirus pandemic may have put the kibosh on this year's global concert, it has not stopped the International Jazz Day festivities from taking place online. So starting now and continuing pretty much throughout the day, there will be International Jazz Fest masterclasses, concerts, live stream online on the International Jazz Day website, jazzday.com. And starting at 3 p.m., the big concert is taking place online with the likes of Dee Dee Bridgewater, Diane Reeves, Cecil McLaurin-Salvant, and oh, so many more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This is exactly the kind of thing jazz fans need right now to lift their spirits. I encourage you to check it out after the brunch, of course, at jazzday.com. Meanwhile, I am stoked to be talking to our guest today. He's singer, songwriter, and pianist extraordinaire, Jon Regen. He has a new album out right now called Higher Ground. That is an excellent follow-up to 2015's Stop Time. He's going to be on the show talking about his amazing career and playing a little from the new album for us in a minute. But first, I'd like to thank some of this episode's sponsors. They include Concord Jazz and their new album, Ella 100, live at the Apollo. So this is a fantastic live recording from 2016 featuring superb performances by the likes of Andrew Day, Ledisi, Liz Wright, Cassandra Wilson, Monica Mancini, the Count Basie Orchestra, led by trumpeter Scotty Barnhart. It was hosted by Grammy Award winner Patty Austin and Tony Award nominated actor David Alan Grier, and meticulously produced by Ella Fitzgerald drummer Greg Field. Again, it's available now on streaming platforms and, of course, for purchase on concord.com. Greg Field, the producer, recommends turning down the lights, pouring yourself a nice drink, and letting the album play out in its entirety. I'd say that's a pretty good idea too, folks. Speaking of drinks, we also want to shout out our friends at Woodford Reserve Bourbon, makers of superb bourbon. Let me tell you, you know, the Kentucky Derby was supposed to take place this weekend on May 2nd, Saturday, but it was postponed until September. Well, Woodford Reserve reached out to me about their Kentucky Derby at Home initiative, which not only honors the tradition of the Kentucky Derby, but also raises money for people that have been impacted by this global pandemic. So it is taking place this Saturday, May 2nd at 2 p.m. You can catch a demo on how to make the perfect mint julep or a great mocktail recipe inspired by the Derby. And at 3 p.m., you could join a global toast to the Derby. And people, you know what else happens to go really well with bourbon? Jazz, that is. So tomorrow at 5 p.m., you can tune into our Facebook page to catch what we're calling the perfect pairing, jazz and bourbon. We are going to be joined by a brand ambassador from Woodford Reserve to make some bourbon cocktails, and I am going to be pairing them with classic jazz albums. It'll be really fun. You don't want to miss it. And look, it's an excuse to drink bourbon at 5 p.m. on Friday. That's always a good thing. For more info, visit woodfordreserve.com. This episode is also brought to you by Blue Sound. This is an award-winning wireless high-res sound system that lets you play music in any and every room throughout your home. You choose music on your favorite streaming service or from a music library connected to your home network. Link it up via the free Blue S app to any one of their devices that are portable. You can take them from room to room. They have some nice sound bars that go under the TV too. You know, that's a good look. And that's it. Getting the kind of crisp and detailed sound that only an audiophile grade system can deliver has never been easier. You can learn more at bluesound.com or by checking our website, jazziz.com, where we have put together a Blue Sound buyer's guide. Anyway, that's it for me and my introduction. My sponsors, my coffee's ready to go. Jon Regen, I hear him knocking at the Brunch Place door. Let's go ahead and welcome to the show, Mr. Jon Regen. Hey, man.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, man. How you doing? How you hanging in there? What's going on at home?
Well, I was thinking of your introduction about how it's good to have bourbon at a certain hour, and I think that for some of us, the hour of that is rotating. So
exactly, 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like all of the world. I'm optimistic and hopeful, and staying in my living room. So we're looking forward to a better day. But thank God, my family and I are safe. So thank you.
That's the most important thing, man. And, I raise my cup of coffee to you in my Jazziz mug, I might say, available on Jazziz.com. I understand. I've read somewhere you're a coffee guy.
Wow, you did some research.
I did some research, brother.
Maybe you saw that New York Times piece.
Correct, sir. Yeah. Correct, sir.
I've been a coffee person since I was old enough to be allowed to turn the coffee maker on myself. So it's one of the only vices that's left at this point.
Well, I stepped up my game for you. I ordered from New York City Zabar's special blend and had it delivered because that's a company I want to keep in business, man.
How did you prepare it though? Is your water hot enough? Is your grinder correct? I mean, it's a multi-step process.
I ground it for a V60 pour over.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We're talking the same language.
Exactly, man. I've got the Chemex, I've got the French press, I got the mocha pot, I've got it all. So yes.
Before I had a child, I had all those gadgets too. Now I just have a Technivorm.
Hey, man, anything's better than instant, I guess. Or decaf. God forbid.
This is the most in depth I've gotten about coffee in an interview. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome, man.
We could take it down if we want. We could keep going.
Exactly. I think people would much rather hear you play something from the new album, which is amazing. Higher Ground came out in 2019 on Rope-a-Dope Records, correct?
That's right. Came out October of 2019.
That's right. It's a fantastic album. John, wow, you just so happen to be sitting next to a piano, man. What are the chances you're able to play something?
I could play something whenever the cue is given to me. I will play and sing something for you.
Cue given, my friend.
So you're ready for one?
I'm ready for one.
Okay. I'll play you the title track of this new record, Higher Ground, a song that I wrote sort of inspired by and dedicated to my son. And if you buy this album, you will hear my son on the track because he was not quiet during the vocal recording in my apartment. So
how appropriate. You will undoubtedly hear my daughter in the background.
Okay. Well, my son is chained upstairs. You can't let him. Okay, here we go.
I should take a cue from you.
See if I can get this a little closer for you so we have a good microphone pickup. Here we go.
Let's do it.
I've been young, I've been old, I've been bought, I've been sold, but I've never known somebody like you. I've been high, I've been low, been the star of the show, but I've never seen a person so true. I was king for a day, then it all went away. Sometimes lost is really found. I was gone for a while, back here inside. I'm a better man now, because I stand on higher ground. I've been rich, I've been poor, I've been lost on the floor. Remember when I didn't have a clue? I've had my name up in lights, told the world seen the sights. They never moved me just like you do. I had suits made for kings, I said all the right things, till you found me and you turned me around. Every day, every way, I'm here to stay. I'm a better man now, because I stand on higher ground. I've lost is really fine. If I was gone for a while, I'm back here in style. I'm a better man now. 'Cause I stand on higher ground. I'm a better man now. You make me stand on higher ground.
Just beautiful, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank
You know, the best songwriting has a way just of articulating those gut feelings. You know, you get the butterflies in your chest when you're so appreciative of your partner, your spouse, or your wife,
Yeah.
and articulating them in, you know, simple terms,
Yeah.
which is something that you and a lot of the great songwriters do so well. So that was beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That was
I
beautiful.
appreciate it. Well, I think it takes, much like jazz, it takes
Yeah.
much of your life to learn the notes and the words not to say. So by the time I'm 140, it's going to be. No, I mean, you know, music and songwriting are stories that you try to find as you make your way through life. And the more you live and the more you hurt and the more happiness and the more of a journey you take, the more you can write about. And if you just sort of keep your ears and your eyes open, hopefully you find interesting stories to tell.
Totally, man. And yet, in doing my research for you, you know, reading some of the press materials on this, I've heard you call this album, you know, the one that you never thought you'd make. The album that you never planned on making. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, what I mean is that I made a record in 2015 called Stop Time, which you had mentioned, which was an amazing journey. I made it with Mitchell Froom, a producer who I always loved and wanted to work with, and Elvis Costello's band. And I toured that record for a number of years all over the world. And then my wife got pregnant and we had a beautiful son. And I was a very present parent. My wife has a standard job, and I have like many musicians, a non-standard job. So I was home with my kid and really realizing the totality of what it means to be a parent and not an absentee parent. And I just thought there's just no way that I could make a record like I typically do, which is seclude myself with a piano and a notepad and write a record and then go somewhere interesting and make it. Right. So I sort of tabled it. I just said, you know, this is, you know, like we do as parents, we just say, well, that's just not something I could do right now. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to make a record for a while. I didn't give up on it, but I thought, you know, it might be some time. And then by happenstance, up until this month, I just left Keyboard Magazine, but I was the editor of Keyboard Magazine for many years. That's right. And I was invited by the keyboardist in the band Jamiroquai out to a show of the band's in Forest Hills, Queens. Okay. And I went and I saw them and I just freaked out. I said, you know, there's 14,000 people in the rain.
This was the Forest Hills Tennis Center gig
Forest Hills
that I've heard about.
Yeah. Where my parents lived before I was born, right on that street, which is wow. I was just knocked out by the music. And I met this keyboard player's name is Matt Johnson after the show. And we just sort of had this, we hit it off. We were an unlikely pair. I mean, he's a proper, polite British synth wizard, funky synth guy. And I'm like a gravelly voice, New York singer-songwriter. But we both came up with jazz and we both had we started just sort of mentioning similar touchstones that we had. Herbie and Kenny Barron and Mitchell Froom, and we just, you know, so we realized we shared a love of music in general. So I got home and I had just bought a vintage keyboard, which is sitting next to me, a Roland Juno 60, and I was messing around with it. And I had this idea. It was sort of this arpeggiated synth line that could stay the same over a bunch of different chords. And I said, you know, I'm going to just send it to Matt, see what he comes up with. And say, you know, are you interested in writing a tune? Here's an idea I had. And it was really very rough. And he said, mate, leave it with me. And like a day later, came back like this fully produced thing that sounded like Earth, Wind, and Fire meets Stevie Wonder. You know, it was crazy. And I said, man, if this guy can do this with like a snippet of a demo, what could we do together? And it just got me really excited, and I think that when you're making a record, you really need to be excited about something. You need to have a song, a group, a tour, something that's going to make you really get excited about the writing
To
process.
sustain that creative energy, because
Yeah.
it's labor intensive, man. Yeah.
And it's also, I'm not a song factory. I mean, there are some guys that are great. They can, here's a song about a cat. Here's a song about a Buick. But I need something to latch onto. So when I realized that there was a great camaraderie between us, I thought, well, I have a really good recording system in my living room, and my kid takes a lot of naps. So let's see if we could do this, And I would, every morning, when I put my son down for his first nap, I'd set my studio up, and and as we got more excited about each song, that would get me more excited about writing more songs or finishing old songs.
Mm-hmm.
So within the course of 4 to 6 months, we had a new record that was literally done via email across the ocean, with nobody ever playing in the same place at the same time, and some of my heroes coming out to join me on this record. Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran, and Chuck Lavelle from the Stones, and Larry Klein, and Tim LaFave, and Ben Montench from the Heartbreakers, and Andy Summers, and so it was a miraculous feat of accomplishment just to get it done.
The power of technology, man. Yeah. And it's a cool vibe for you, because you mentioned some of those synth lines. It's got a little electronic stuff, and from what I understand, you grew up on that music. You've got a great line in, I'm drawing a blank on the song now, but you were saying it might be Last to Go. I was born the year the Beatles called it quits.
Well, I appreciate you listening to the lyrics. Yes. In fact, I'll play that song next for you. But I mean, I'm an accidental pop-ish songwriter. I mean, I was a guy that came up in the 80s, and the music that I listened to was pop. I mean, I listened to, there was no bigger fan of the Police and of Duran Duran than me. And it's ironic that two of the members of those bands would come out and play on this record. But so it wasn't until I was, in high school jazz band, and kind of getting into, we have to remember that in the 80s, now I'm dating myself, but there was no YouTube. And you really, the amount of music that you were exposed to jazz-wise as a suburban kid,
right?
You would have to have a father or mother that were a jazz musician or an aficionado to find it. I mean,
right.
To me, it was Neil Hefti big band arrangements of Tangerine, and also I was a saxophone player till I was really 17-ish. I doodled on the piano, but I really applied myself to piano as a teenager. So I was really a pop guy until I got into jazz. I have to thank my mother, who sent me to the Eastwood School of Music for their summer session. And I met guys like Joel Fromm and Neil Miner and a whole bunch of guys, and came back like, I want to play bebop, which was weird at that time,
Right.
And then I went to the University of Miami for a year, which had a great music department. And I studied with a guy named Vince Maggio, who's a tremendous piano player, taught Bruce Hornsby how to play the piano. But I was just missing something. I was missing like an illustration of how to do it. And that's when a friend of mine, I have to say his name, Michael Geegan, because if it wasn't for him, I would never have found out about Kenny Barron. He said, well, Kenny Barron teaches at Rutgers. And I was, I'm from New Jersey.
Right.
So I said,
Kenny Barron, we should mention, incredible jazz pianist in the straight ahead vein. And
my hero. Yeah, really.
Yeah, huge influence on a lot of people.
Yeah. And I said, well, who's Kenny Barron? And he said, and he goes, you better go to the music library now.
Yeah. And
I went and I found a copy of the Sphere record 4-in-1, and I put it on. And like the minute Kenny started soloing, I said, oh, I get it. There's a solo line over chords, and the soloing sort of is in the pocket of it just like a light bulb went off. And I said, I'm going to go to Rutgers and I'm going to study with Kenny Barron.
Wow, man.
And that was the beginning of a pretty formidable and long straight ahead jazz career before I started coming back and writing songs.
Right. And from Kenny, what were some of the key takeaways of just, jazz pianism,
Well, I mean, so many. I mean, first of all, when I studied with Kenny, we're talking like 88 to 92, 93.
Okay.
89 to 93. He was like, he was on the road constantly with like Stan Getz and Abbey Lincoln, and it was nonstop. So number one, to have a guy who was doing it on a daily basis, because there are a lot of great teachers out there, but when your teacher is really out there playing and making records, it just sort of adds to the gumption that you want to have. I mean, I would go to my lessons and I would say, I don't want to suck in front of this guy. I mean, literally, I really.
That's good incentive. Yeah.
But back to your original question, which, I mean, I got so much from him. I think I got just about everything from him. Touch. I mean, the way he you know, the way he caresses the piano, no pun intended. It's like,
you can convey so much just through touch, dynamics,
touch,
you know,
and space.
Yep.
And also for me, time. I mean, Kenny Barron's eighth note to me is the baddest eighth note in the business. I mean, it's almost like a drummer and a bass player's, you know, ride cymbal and bass locking up together. And so I think that I was really ahead of the curve as an 18, 19-year-old studying with a guy who basically taught me through osmosis touch and time and grace and eloquence, you know. And so that was really the beginning for me.
And I think harmonically, you know, that study with, you know, a jazz master, you know, deep into this tradition, obviously had a profound effect on your songwriting, because it's funny you mentioned Bruce Hornsby, something that I think he does really well and that you do really well. You make really complex, you know, harmonic ideas, novel chord progressions sound simple, inevitable. Oh, it was always supposed to go that way. Oh, it was always supposed to sound that way. I'm curious, you know, as a songwriter, and again, I'm sure this is a chicken and the egg question, but, you know, as you're coming up with a song, how much of it is, let's say something with a novel chord progression, something extreme, a little different. How much is it, you know, I want to kind of put this puzzle together and see what I can do with it, versus this is just where I hear the melody going into this weird, you know, unusual space.
You know, it happens all different ways. I've been fortunate that a lot of guys who I look up to as songwriters have helped me along the way. I mean, Rob Thomas, for instance, from Matchbox 20 and his solo career, Dan Wilson, and also studying from, you know, great songwriters like Randy Newman and Bruce Hornsby and Billy Joel. And but I think that it's really, you can be inspired by just about anything. I mean, I can be inspired by a lyric. I mean, I remember I was walking around my house for the better part of a year singing this phrase, every night I have the same exhausting dream. I see pictures of you in a dirty magazine. And that was all I had.
That's just the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And my wife was troubled. You know, I said, check out this song. And she said, well, first of all, it's not a song. It's like a line.
Right.
Second of all, who is this about? You know? but I use that to illustrate that you can be inspired by anything. But as Rob Thomas once said to me, everybody can be inspired. But what are you going to do with the inspiration? And one of the things I did on this record, and which I was so grateful to Matt Johnson about, was that anytime I had an idea for something, he would say, oh, I like that. Finish that. That's good. You know, as songwriters, if you're in a box, if you're in a vacuum, you know, you go, oh, that's stupid, or I've written that before, you know. But when you have somebody that's kind of sparring with you and saying, you know, go for it. We can always change it later. It really gives you. So, I mean, you know, finishing songs is the way you make an album. And that's how I try to approach. Every song on this record had a different kind of inspiration. I mean, the first track, Wide Awake, was based on that synth line. There's a song called Hole in My Heart, which was based on a little ostinato that goes. All I had was, I got a hole in my heart, you know. But as I got into it, I said, well, what's the story here? You know, so I think that songwriting is really like, it's almost like archaeology. It's like you're looking for clues, and you're trying to find your way through. But if you're tenacious enough, you get there, hopefully.
Yeah, as Paul Simon said in an interview, I am so much more interested in what I discover I want to say than what I planned on saying, you know, which I think is key for any creative person. You go in wondering, oh, I've got to have a song lined out A to Z before I can sit down and record it. But the real joy is in the discovery, and you can hear that joy come through a song, you know, when a song is that good.
I think it's true. And I think on this record, you know, we forget that there was a time where a band could go into a studio for a year. You know, Fleetwood Mac made Rumors. It was like over a year, you know, just racking up studio bills. No, none of us can do that anymore. But what was so great with Matt Johnson on this record, I remember he said to me, mate, I have March off, and then Jamiroquai is going to get busy. So we're going to have to, you know, let's make some waves in March. And I thought, okay, I have like the better part of 20 days to finish the bulk of this record.
Right.
So, so I think, Steve Porcaro from Toto used to say to me, I need a deadline, and so deadlines are good.
They are, man.
If you don't have a record to make a deadline on, somebody should be, you have
self-imposed.
To
yeah. Cool, man. Well, John, I know you've got another song ready to perform from the new album. We'll get to it in a minute. I just want to take a minute to thank a few more sponsors midway through here.
Let's do it.
One, John, is Mac Avenue. It's a great label, putting us on the road to great music for 20 years now. They've got a really cool initiative going on right now during Mac Avenue's All One event. From 4 days started today, April 30th through Sunday, May 3rd. 100% of the sales from macavenue.com will go directly to Mac Avenue artists. So it's important for us to play our part in these tough times for musicians. This is a way to thank these amazing artists that we love by supporting their music. You can help spread the word with, online if you're buying an album with hashtag Mac Avenue, hashtag all one, ALLONE. And if you visit macavenue.com, you can purchase some of these albums. 100% of the sales go directly to the artists. Very cool.
Right.
Thanks also to Smoke Sessions Records. They've got a new album out right now by Wayne Escoffrey called The Humble Warrior. It's a really great record. Randy Brecker's on it. Ralph Peterson's playing drums. Ugano Okegwa is playing bass. It's a smoking record. They also have historical release by Harold Mayborn from a concert he performed, I want to say in 2016 or thereabouts. Harold passed away in 2019. He was a great, jazz player out of Memphis, and a huge in the education sphere. So that album is called Mayborn Plays Mayborn. It's him playing all of his own original compositions. That is out as well. Visit smokesessionsrecords.com to learn more about that. All right, John. Hey, man, I don't want to hold you up any longer. I would love for you to play another song, brother.
All right, well, let's play another song. I'm going to play this song that you mentioned. It's not one that I play very often, but because sometimes I get a little bit emotional when I play the song. But this is a song called "The Last to Go" that I wrote sort of late one night in New York City. I was up in the middle, sort of toward the end of making this record, and I was just thinking about the journey that my life had taken and how grateful I was for where that journey had taken me, and knowing I owed a lot of it to my wife. And so this was sort of a song I wrote late at night, sort of just looking back at the hallmarks of my life and thinking about the places that I still wanted to go, but how grateful I was of the places I've seen. And after I wrote it, I called up my friend Ben Montench, who really, for my dollar, there was never a more soulful, rocking keyboard player from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And I said, the funny thing is Ben and I, we got married around the same time, and we had kids on the exact same day. So our kids are exactly the same. So we sort of go through these hallmarks together. And I said, maybe you understand how I feel. Maybe you would play on this. And he drove over to Mitchell Froome's house and played Hammond organ on the song at Mitchell Froome's house. So I thank Benmont and Mitchell Froome, all these kind of these people coming together and completing the circle. And I have to say before I play this that one of the first Hammond organ solos I ever heard was Mitchell Froome on Crowded House's "Don't Dream It's Over." So
good place to start.
The fact that Benmont played it at Mitchell's, it just is craziness. So anyway, I'll play this one for you.
Beautiful, man. Looking forward to it.
It's called "The Last to Go." And thank you for noticing the lyrics on this song. I was born the year the Beatles called it quits, and Apollo 13's astronauts made it back from space alive. Vietnam raged on and on to Janis Joplin's final song. The Concorde surge Chateaubriand, and no one spilled their wine. And decades passed while we blinked our eyes, and things we thought would last just vaporized into the sky. In the midst of disappointment and the chaos that collides, you're the cure for what confounds me and the truth between the lines. You will never know the light you shine or where your presence glows. So let me be last to go. In these hours of desolation, in the confusion that confines, you're the answer to my questions and the hope that's been denied. You'll never understand just how you've made my spirit grow. So let me be the last to love you. I hope you'll be the last to go. I hope I'll be the last to love you. I pray you'll be the last to go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. What a beautiful just statement, of love and appreciation for your partner, for your
Thank you.
spouse. And it reminds me, George Saunders, writer, said he never really became the writer that he is now, blossomed into the full writer that he is now until he was married and had kids.
Yeah.
And in certain respects, I think the same about myself. And I'm curious, not that I'm anywhere near the level of George Saunders as a writer, but I'm curious how having a family kind of changes you as an artist, as a creative person.
I mean, it changes you in so many ways.
That is true.
I remember there was a songwriter I worked with years ago named Susan Werner who made a statement to the effect of like, emotional bliss is the songwriter's nightmare. And for many years, I bought into that myth. I mean, sometimes when I'm playing gigs live, I let the audience in on the trajectory of the set, and I say like, here's a song I wrote when I was single, and it's called "She's Not You, But Tonight She'll Have to Do." Right. And here's a song I wrote as a married father, and it's called "Before," and it's about what will we leave the planet. Now that's a pretty giant emotional dichotomy right there.
Right.
But for me, I think that as a songwriter and as a musician, having a family sort of calls you out on your own bullshit because you have to get things done. I mean, if you have 24 hours with nothing to do, those days can just roll into each other. But when I got 2 hours before my kid wakes up screaming, I'm gonna have to finish the song.
Yep.
And I think that friends of mine who had kids many, many years before me used to say, hell hath no fury like a busy mom, and it's true. It's like you really you figure out a way to get work done that you didn't know. I mean, I wrote a lot of this record with like Sesame Street or Baby TV on, and also you find, hopefully you find more universal things to write about rather than just my heart is broken and I'm drunk in a bar. Those are fun songs, and I hope I still get to. Well, I hope I still get to write the drunk in the bar part.
Right.
But I think that hopefully as a person, like as a musician, you just grow and your music gets better and your life gets better.
Yeah. And the other thing for me was, as a writer, pre-kids, so much of my identity, of my self-worth was tied up in the work. It was I live and died with the work. And then you bring someone else into the world, and you realize there are more important things, man. And, so it's really just a newfound appreciation for life. And hopefully that shines through in the work. And the other thing was that it helps silence the inner critic, because the love is just, never ends from them. As a creative person, that inner critic is always telling you you're not good enough. At the end of the day, kid, your wife still loves you. It's like, to hell with the inner critic.
Yeah. I mean, listen, hopefully your work is not going to become, hopefully you're still going to have standards. You're not just going to go, well, it's like during this pandemic, you go, well, I put pants on Thursday, so.
Correct. And I did, John. I did.
Yeah. Well, I can't see.
You have to take my word for it.
Listen, I think that all you can do is try to be the best that you can do, that you can be in all regards. And I think having a family just taught me that there was more things that were more important than the tour and that were more important than the gig. Even though I approached them as seriously as I always did, but there are things that take precedence now, you know?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
before I got married and had a kid, the idea of like canceling a gig or canceling a tour for anything, I mean, like, why would you do that? But now you'd go, is my kid okay? Is my family okay? You know, so yeah, I hope. One thing that I was particularly proud of this album, not only just getting it done, having a young child, but, you know, just the arc of the songwriting to me is stronger.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just a tribute to the fact that my life is better and that I'm open to the cues that there are other things to look and listen for.
Totally. You know, and another strength of your songwriting, since we're talking about strengths,
Thank you.
is your ability to use, you know, plain language to really express vivid, concrete ideas. It's something that some of my favorite songwriters do, you know, Paul Simon, and one that I know, an icon that we both share an affinity for, Randy Newman.
Yeah.
You know, I assume he had a strong influence in your development as a songwriter.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that you know, if you're a singer, songwriter, piano player of a certain age, and you know, you had to have been exposed to Randy Newman. I think I was exposed to more as I started getting into songwriting. I mean, when I was coming up, I mean, I Love LA and some of the later things were sort of prevalent, but just hearing songs like Marie and I Think It's Gonna Rain Today, and he had one on a record a couple years ago called the name is escaping me now, but it's Losing You, but I'll never get over losing you.
Right.
And I remember him talking about this song. He did an interview with Steinway in UK, and he just wrote, and it was interesting for me because you realize, you know, everybody was attributing it to him about a love that he lost, but he said it was actually he had heard a story or had heard somebody or read a story about somebody who had lost a son and they just could never get over it. And so, you know, his talents are just kind of so profound on so many levels, his, you know, lyrically, melodically,
exactly
wise. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say is, you know, a simple lyric can be transformed when it fits the perfect puzzle piece with a good melody. Yeah. You know, it adds so much life to a lyric, which is one of the reasons why, you know, and let me totally preface here by saying I love Bob Dylan, you know, a poet. He not busy being born is busy dying, you know. Yeah. Not everyone can write a line like that. He was not a melody man. You know, which is why, you know, someone like a Paul Simon or Randy Newman, who really has the power to, you know, lock in a good lyric with the perfect melody. Yeah. The songs can be so much more potent, you know. Yeah. They have staying power.
I think one thing that I've learned kind of making this journey is that a song can be, I think Dan Wilson had a line, a song can be about anything. And you know, you look at the new Fiona Apple record, which could be jarring for a minute. You hear it, you go, this doesn't really evince a lot of the things that I, you know, typically think about songwriting. And then you go, this is coming at it from a whole other angle. And so I think hopefully, you know, you have to tell your story. You know, I come from a certain era of songwriting, and that's sort of where I feel comfortable. Doesn't mean I don't jump outside of it. I feel like this record, especially instrumentation wise and production wise, I sort of really kind of went for it. But still, at the end of the day, you know, if you can't get it across in a piano and a vocal or a guitar and a vocal, to me, maybe the song's not that strong. You know?
And it's true, man. We've talked a lot about your songwriting and your composing as a songwriter, but brother, you've got killer solo chops. You know, you are among the cats. You know, I think of like George Benson, who, if he never sung a note, he would have had a monster career as a straight ahead guitarist. You know, you hear some of his recordings from like the Pori Jazz Festival. Yeah. You know, he can lay it down, man. He could have. Yeah. He is another Wes Montgomery. A modern cat like Jameson Ross, who's a phenomenal vocalist. You know, Jameson, man, in kind of like the soul gospel vein. He won the Thelonious Monk jazz competition on drums. Yeah. You know, have you ever considered doing something more straight ahead? And are people often surprised that, ooh, man, this guy's got some fire jazz chops?
I mean, you know, I have a bunch of records as a straight ahead piano player. I mean, when I got to New York in '93 and sort of started trying to make my way as a piano player, I was playing with Kyle Eastwood. I was playing with Ted Dunbar. I was touring with little Jimmy Scott as his piano player. And I have a couple records out, solo records out. I was one of the first artists that Half Note, the Blue Notes label, signed. And I made a record with Ray Drummond and You're on Israel that came out years ago. So, I did that. And
as a lead, were those leader projects? Your name on them? Oh, cool. Yeah.
There's a record called Jon Regan Trio Live at the Blue Note. There's a record called Tel Aviv, which I made at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, with an amazing group of Israeli musicians. And I also had a record called From Left to Right, the first record I made, that had Earl May on bass and Sonny Jane from the band Red Barat on drums. So, I maybe it's not that evident online, but I did that, and I loved it, and I took a little bit of flack from people when I sort of made this jump into songwriting, because people sort of thought, oh, you're chasing commerciality, you're chasing something, and really, as I tell people, I was Jimmy Scott's piano player when I started writing songs. And it became very clear to me that I was playing with a guy of his generation, singing songs of his generation. But I thought, what would the songs of my generation be? And if I have songs in me, maybe I should write them and maybe I should sing them. So to answer your question, to me, it's all connected. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I have a regular gig in New York City at a place called the Roxy Hotel a couple times a week, where I'm playing solo piano and I'm playing with a band, great musicians like Craig Handy and Conrad Korsch and Gregor Murray. And so to me, it's all connected. I mean, I remember Kenny Kirkland when I was growing up listening to Sting saying, I want to play all the music. I want to play pop music. I want to play jazz. I want to play classical. You don't want to hear me play classical, but to me, it's like I'm excited by all of it. So yeah, I mean, I love to solo and I love to play straight ahead. And when you see me play live with the band, we really stretch it out. I mean, there's a track from my Blue Note show debuting this material called Hole in My Heart, which you can see some of that, and more videos from that show are coming out soon. So
man.
It's all part of the same story to me.
Totally, man. Well, those videos are exciting. We will look forward to those for sure, man. John, we have time for one shorty at the end here, so hopefully we'll end on some great music and wrap up when you're done.
Let's do a shorty. Yeah, this is I think this is an appropriate one to do. Again, this is one I don't play that often, but this is from the new record. This is a song called Goodnight, New York, and this was written as a lullaby to this city that gave me so much. And now in these times that we're faced with, especially in this area that I live in, it feels more like a prayer to me. So I offer this up to everybody, not only in New York, but around the world. And hopefully we'll get to the other side of this soon. So this is called Goodnight, New York. And I thank you for having me today.
Very welcome.
And I want to shout out to the great company Roland, because I'm using my Roland Juno 60, and this thing is like 35 years old and you can't kill it. So here we go.
Much love to Roland. Just beautiful, man. Just beautiful. The perfect way to sign off. John, man, if people want to follow along, if they want to check in with you, maybe watch some of those videos, where can people follow along? All things
They
John
can follow
Regan.
me at Jon Regan, JonRegen.com. They can find me on the Twitter, on the Instagram, the Gram, as the kids call it, Facebook. I'm all over the web. And thanks to you. I have to say a big thank you to you and everybody at Jazziz for always supporting me. I remember when my record Stop 10 came out, and you guys put it in the CD. For young people, the CD was a thing that was round, and you put it in a machine. But big thanks to you. We need more outlets like you guys supporting this music, and I thank you for having me.
It is our absolute pleasure to be talking with you, to hear some of this amazing music. Again, the name of the album is Higher Ground. It's out right now. You can stream it, and you can buy it. More importantly, you can buy it on one of those CDs.
Yeah, tomorrow, Bandcamp is having a very big sale where I don't think they're taking any commissions. So go to the Bandcamp. You can get vinyl. We have. Wait a second.
Oh, we got merch. If you
want a life-size picture.
Who's that handsome fella? Yeah.
You can get it. So thanks a million, Jazziz, and thanks to everybody watching.
You are very welcome, John. I raise a mug of hand-ground V60 poured Zabar's special blend coffee to you, sir, and I thank you for joining me on the Jazziz Brunch today.
Love, and thanks so much.
You're very welcome. We'll see you backstage. I'm going to sign off with everyone at home. Thanks, John. All right, everyone. What a treat that was to hear Jon Regan, an incredible singer-songwriter. What a voice, and a killer piano player as well. Really a treat. Again, the album Higher Ground out now. Go check it out. Go stream it. It's amazing. Coming up tomorrow on The Brunch for Us, we're going to be talking with Delphio Marsalis. That'll be a real treat to kick off the month of May. And then a little later next week, we've got Fred Hirsch coming up, Bobby Watson, John Schofield, Jay Beckenstein of Spyro Gyra. A lot in store. I want to remind people while we're at it that we're running a special subscription offer right now. You can join Jazziz, a digital all-access subscription for 99 cents per month for 3 months, and then we will enroll you to receive our summer 2020 issue coming out in June. It's all about fusion. It's got a cover story with Chick Corea, a wide-ranging interview. We talked with some young fusioneers who are continuing the fusion legacy. Again, that's coming out in June, and if you sign up right now, if you enroll right now, you get 3 months of digital access. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive that print summer 2020 issue. Also, independent artists, if you've got an album coming out or you know someone with an album coming out, best way to get it to our attention is use our Inside Track program. Go to jazziz.com/inside track or click Submit Your Music in the top navigation bar. People ask me all the time, how can I get my music in your ears, in front of your face? This is the way to do it. You submit everything about your album, the name, the album cover. You can send us a link to Bandcamp, SoundCloud, whatever you want. It comes directly to my inbox. I listen to them all. I promise you. It can end up in a Song of the Day post, a weekly playlist. Hey, you could even end up on this very podcast. So I encourage everyone, independent artists out there, or friends of independent artists, go ahead and check out Jazziz Inside Track. To everyone listening, to healthcare workers, first responders, grocery store workers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope we could brighten your day just a little bit. Artists, musicians, creative people, you're all essential workers too. Everyone's an essential person in my book. So thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Jazziz Daily Brunch. Cheers.